WBNE.
Hello, and welcome to episode 51, all about the Houses of Healing. Chapter 8, Book 5 of The Return of the King, being the 51st part of That's What I'm Talking About. 51st doesn't sound like a real word. Hello, my name is Mary Clay. If that's too complicated for you, just call me MC. And it's Mary Clay from the future. What up? This is part 2 of the conversation that Buddy Alice and I had about the Houses of Healing. So if you haven't listened to part 1, what are you doing? Go back, listen to that, and then come back and listen to this one. And then another quick announcement that I just want to make right off the bat is that this month I will be donating the Patreon funds for the month of June to the Harry Potter Alliance. The Harry Potter Alliance is a really just amazing organization, and I think shows the absolute best of what the Harry Potter fandom can be, and how the fandom and the people who gather around this work, despite the person who created it, can create a lot of positive change. They do a lot of work for gender and LGBT equality, racial justice, youth advocacy, education, a lot of really important, great stuff. And I honestly trust them. Like, when I donate to them, I know that it's going to a great, great cause. So in honor of Pride Month and also the Black Lives Matter movement, and also in spite of a certain author, I think that this is a really great organization that can do a lot. So now we will jump right back into this episode.
Where we last left our heroes, Buddy Alice and Mary Clay, they were discussing the Houses of the Healing. Virgil had returned with 6 leaves of a random plant that Aragorn needed to heal some very important people. Can Aragorn save them in time?
So Virgil comes running back, and he is like, I found 6 leaves of this thing. And Aragorn's like, great, we will work with that. And first they go to Faramir, and he kind of like brews it up with some hot water, and I'm not going to like read every time they describe what it smells like, because this podcast would be 30 minutes longer if I did that.
But it's different every time.
Yeah,
I found
it's
that
different every
interesting.
time. But the first one that I think like kind of captures the idea says, for the fragrance that came to each was like a memory of dewy mornings of unshadowed sun in some land of which the fair world in spring is itself but a fleeting memory.
That's beautiful.
It reminds me of in Harry Potter, the love potion.
Yeah. Amartentia?
That's it. That smells different to each person based on like who they're attracted to.
That's a really good parallel.
Side note, my favorite thing is when Ron is like, yeah, I don't know, mine smells like books and parchment and a cat.
That's
What's
so
that
weird.
about?
It's so weird how it smells exactly like Hermione. I don't know. That's weird.
And then Harry's like, yeah, mine smells exactly like your sister's soap. That's weird.
That's so weird. But I'm sure it doesn't mean anything.
They're such idiots.
Oh.
They're the best.
Oh, it's good.
But I really do love the description of Aragorn, like, performing this healing act. Like, the way that he's, like, crushing up the herbs and making it into a tea, and the way that it affects the whole room. You know, the way Tolkien handles magic is a lot more subtle than a lot of other fantasy writers. But this is one of those magical moments, right? Where, like, it feels like a spell is being cast, but it's so, like, grounded and real that it also feels believable.
Yeah.
And almost as if they don't, like, see it as magic, they just see it as, like, this is a thing that works. And it works so, like, thoroughly and completely and immediately and wonderfully. And Faramir just, like, springs to life. And he's like, my captain, my king.
Okay. Like, springs awake, oh, captain, my captain, basically.
So cute.
It's also like, everyone who is there is basically like just standing there staring and watching Aragorn just do you know, a king thing. They're like, oh my god, this is like it's actually working. This is him like in his element doing his thing as the king, like the saying says. Like, that's incredible that we're here to witness these people like coming back from the brink of death.
It's wonderful.
So he like kind of like wafts it in their face. I don't know, so they smell it.
I think he also, at one point, I don't remember if it was to Faramir or somebody else, where he like dips a cloth in it and like wipes down their face. And
I think he does something like a little bit different with each person.
Yeah.
Let's
kind of
see.
just like get this like Athos water on or near them, and they'll wake up and they'll be okay.
So Faramir's first word, he wakes up. And this is when I was like, we do not deserve him. His first word, it says, a light of knowledge and love was kindled in his eyes, and he spoke softly, my lord, you called me, I come. What does the king command?
Ugh.
My goodness. Ugh. Oh, man.
He's such a treasure.
You know, he was moments from death, and he wakes up and he's like, you're the guy in charge, and I'll do anything for you.
It's like, yeah, and what do you need?
It's incredible. Like, the light of knowledge and love is a really beautiful way to describe a person like returning to themselves.
Yeah.
And Faramir's so soft in that moment, right? Like,
he's such a soft boy.
Aww.
Such a sweet boy.
I just want to, this chapter just makes me want to like go hug them all. And be like,
they all need a hug too.
They super
group
need a hug. Well, we know a hug has touch has healing properties. Like that's just sweet. And he kisses them all. Doesn't Aragorn kiss them all? Does he kiss Faramir? He definitely kisses Merry. He definitely kisses Éowyn. Like, he's dropping kisses on people's brows like it's nothing. Like, he's gonna kiss it and make it better. And it's so sweet and soft.
Yeah. So I say this with the full knowledge that this television show is like, has not been the greatest at handling the subject matter that it claims to be handling, and yet I continue to watch it. It's 13 Reasons Why on Netflix.
Oh, I haven't watched it yet.
It's honestly like, so the new season just came out, which I didn't realize there was a new season coming out, and I was like, crap, now I have to watch this, because this show is like, for me, it's like a car wreck, and I can't stop watching it, and I understand that like all it does is make me feel terrible and want to cry, and I keep watching. Anyway. And you're watching this show, and literally, like, all of these kids have gone through completely traumatic events, and they keep, like, trying to hide it from their parents, and they're like, oh, we murdered one of our classmates, but don't worry, we're gonna handle it, and we're gonna cover it up, and it's gonna be okay. And I'm just like, tell an adult! Anyway. And they, like, literally, they're like, oh, no, he's addicted to heroin. We're gonna detox him. And I'm like, tell an adult! Anyway, and so... like all of these kids, I'm like, you need a hug. you need, like, I'm watching the scenes where like they're like, yeah, I have all these terrible nightmares, and they're like, yeah, me too, and I'm like, hug, just hug. All of these children need hugs. And also, that's how I know that, like, I'm officially watching a TV show that's, like, not for my demographic anymore. Because I'm like, tell the trusted adult. And then the episode I just watched today, I won't spoil much, but this whole thing where I'm like, tell a trusted adult. They did a thing where they showed that there are no trusted adults in the town.
Oh, love
apparently.
that for them.
So,
love that.
The parents are also dumb. They're so dumb. They're like, my son just escaped from a psych ward. We do not hear from them from the rest of the episode. And you're like, how are you not concerned about this? Okay, anyway. Hello. It's Mary Clay from the future. Here to report. The future's not great. So the day that we recorded this, that night, mere hours after I finished this recording, I cried for like 2 hours straight at the finale of 13 Reasons Why. And I legitimately might start crying again right now. And I just cannot recommend watching this show at all unless you want to experience pure anguish, I think is a good word to describe some of the emotions and the feelings. Just like a portion of it was a roller coaster. I am not okay. I will never trust television writers again, probably for the rest of my life. And I legitimately want to start crying again right now. So, don't watch it unless you want to cry for 2 hours. We're going to go back to past Mary Clay now, because past Mary Clay doesn't know what I know.
and she's happier for it.
It's almost as bad as Riverdale at this point.
Bro, I'm warning you. You don't want to start with me. Dude, what the hell happened? How'd you get those scars? I was attacked by a bear.
Okay, we were talking about hugs. Yeah, they all need hugs. So
They all need hugs and king kisses. And luckily they all get king
Yes.
kisses, if nothing
Just
else.
need a little bit of wafted Kingsfoil smell and a kiss, and it's all better.
And they're all better.
The curse is reversed.
Yeah. As they're walking away from Faramir, I love this. As he followed Gandalf and shut the door, Pippin heard Ioreth exclaim, "King, did you hear that? What did I say? The hands of a healer, I said." And that's what made me like think of the grandma from Mulan of just being like,
Yes.
I
told you. I don't know.
knew that was a lucky cricket.
Exactly.
I love the would you like to stay for dinner?
Would you like to stay forever? It's so good.
I
love
hope
that-
I'm like that when I'm a old
Oh
person.
yeah, absolutely.
Those are
I
goals,
aspire
for
to be
sure.
them. I really like, and this is the kind of the same sentence, but a repeated theme through this chapter when they say, and soon the word had gone out from the house that the king was indeed come among them, and after war he brought healing, and the news ran through the city. That after war he brought healing. I put that in my notes and put a little heart eyes emoji next to it. I was just like that's so, it's so special, and it's so unique to Aragorn, and to like he's so clearly bringing like this new age and this new like kind of leader, and I love that for him. I just, he deserves it, and the kindness and pureness of his heart is why he deserves to be in charge. And that just says so much to Tolkien's like values and what he thinks is necessary in a leader. You know, growing up through all these wars and writing through, you know, some of the most tumultuous years in world history. Tolkien just goes, what if we just had a guy who was nice to people and was a healer? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, because it's not enough to simply win a war. Like, the war would leave scars, like literal and metaphorical, that would inevitably lead to more strife, right? So after war, to bring healing is like this ultimate power move of a leader. And Aragorn is just so good at it. It just comes so naturally to him, without him even like proclaiming himself king, because that's not what a good king does either.
Right. He doesn't need to first go parading through the city. Look at how great I am. I'm your king, and now I will fix everything for you. He sneaks in under cover of darkness to heal people, and it's rumor and word of mouth and the wisdom of a nice old lady who talks too much that brings the news to the rest of the people. Yeah. I just love that.
So after Faramir, they moved to Éowyn, my homegirl, and I was
Poor
like, oh
Éowyn.
great, let's see what weird sexual tension Tolkien is able to do with Aragorn and Éowyn, considering Éowyn is unconscious. Like, what's he gonna do now? Because every time Aragorn and Éowyn are together, there's some like weird thing, and I'm like, this isn't necessary.
This section, though, I mean, there are some moments where it could have been dicey, but Aragorn pushes so much Éowyn and Éomer's relationship. This section becomes about how much Éowyn and Éomer rely on each other and how much they love each other. Aragorn, I think, says a couple of times, like, yeah, I knew she was in love with me, but like,
we will get there, because this is when I'm once again. So, okay. Aragorn to me is like a guy that you start dating and you're like, oh, this is great. He's hot and a feminist. That's awesome. And then slowly, as you're with him over the next couple months, years, whatever, things come out where you're like, oh, that's weird that he doesn't like it when I hang out with my guy friends. I mean, that's nothing, minor. I mean, that's nothing major. It's not anything huge. It's just a small thing. Or, oh, he keeps mentioning things about like how he thinks I'll stay home with the kids. Okay.
Oh, no, Aragorn's not like that.
No. because he's like 75% a feminist, and it's the minor things that you're like, I mean, I guess I'll let this go because in the grand scheme of things, this thing doesn't matter right now, and like at the end of the day, you're still a good person who respects people. However, so they come in and they look at Eowyn, and Aragorn says, "For she was pitted against a foe beyond the strength of her mind or body." And maybe that line would be better for me if Tolkien had done like, "For the foe was beyond the strength of all of our minds and bodies." But he's like, no, it's beyond the strength of her mind and body.
But he
this
follows
foe is
it
beyond
with,
any of you.
But he follows it with, "And those who will take a weapon to such an enemy must be sterner than steel." And he's saying that she is sterner than steel because she took up weapon against an enemy that was stronger than her.
That is followed by, "For she is a fair maiden, fairest lady of a house of queens. Oh, and yet I know not how I should speak of her." He's like, I don't know what to say about her.
I think this is. I mean, this is Aragorn kind of thinking out loud. Like, this is the Witch King is beyond anybody.
Yeah.
This is a creature that cannot be understood by mortals, beyond our skill, beyond our knowledge and reason. And yet she took up arms, and yet she is so fair. I don't know what to think of her. Is she a fair maiden? Is she a fierce warrior?
See, that's
like, what is
that's
she?
what makes me laugh. Is his male mind is like, I don't know what to do. She's beautiful and also strong. That doesn't make sense.
It might not track in the culture of Gondor and Rohan.
Also, I should say that like, I know that all of this is just like the language of the time kind of that Tolkien was writing, and also like the language that he's trying to use to fit into the time period that the story is set in. And like, I'm mostly exaggerating all of this, but not completely.
I found it so sweet too, in the same way that I start identifying shell shock earlier in this chapter, that they're full blown acknowledging that Eowyn was depressed. They say that she had, that her malady begins far back before this day, that she didn't say anything to Éomer because she loves him so much, and but who knows what she spoke to the darkness alone in the bitter watches of night, when all her life seemed shrinking and the walls of her bower closing in about her, a hutch to trammel some wild thing in. Like, that hurts, man. Like, that hurts to read, that they're all sitting here and Éomer's like, oh my god, my own sister had all of this grief and this horrible thing going on in her head, and I had no idea. It's Gandalf that has to tell me that she felt like a staff to Theoden and not like a person. It's they're so Tolkien is sitting here treating Éowyn with so much like so much power and depth, and
they're also careful not to blame anybody for this, because I forget who says it, but there's also like Éomer's like, how could I have not seen this? And somebody's like, she had enough on her mind. She was doing her best. Like, it's not your fault. She was looking out for you too. Like, she was hiding it.
And yet, Éomer, I say to you that she loves you more truly than me, for you she loves and knows. Like she didn't say anything to you, Éomer, because she loves you and knows that you'd worry about her. And so it can't be your fault. It's not your fault. It's sweet. It's really sweet. And of course, yes, they're talking around her and about her while she's laying there unconscious and dying in front.
There's no time, but let's
talk about how gorgeous she is. Yeah. It's not perfect, but I think like identifying PTSD and depression both in this chapter is really special.
So as they're like talking about her and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's been through all this, and they're just kind of like backtracking us a bit to set us up for like where this conversation is. So Aragorn and Éomer are like, oh my god, I wonder why she was so upset and sad about stuff before. Like, I wonder what it could have been. And Gandalf says, he says, my friend, I love this, my friend. He's like, buddy, let's think about this. You had horses and deeds of arms and the free fields. But she, born in the body of a maid, had a spirit and courage at least the match of yours. Yet she was doomed to wait upon an old man whom she loved as a father, and watched him falling into a mean, dishonored dotage. And her part seemed to her more ignoble than that of the staff he leaned on. And he's like, she basically was a woman in a man's world, and everyone around her was failing her. And she can't go off and like do amazing things because that's not what the world has planned for her, like you guys can. And then Aragorn's like, also, I mean, I think she was sad because obviously she loves me and I don't love her. And Amber's like, yeah, that's probably it too.
That's
and I
probably
can just
true.
imagine Gandalf being like, it was the sexism part.
It was the other thing.
It wasn't so much about the unrequited love thing as the like being failed by the world thing, but okay.
Yeah, Eowyn's love, quote unquote, for Aragorn, she's immediately smitten by him, and
I mean, who wouldn't be? He looks like Viggo Mortensen.
He does look like Viggo, is the thing. It's a big thing in the movies too, and it always to me felt like kind of unfocused, like in a tighter storytelling like thing. She wouldn't have those feelings.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a focus at all because, you know, Aragorn is promised to an immortal elf maiden that will give up her immortality to live a life with him. Like it's like this grand romance, cosmic almost. And, you know, here's Eowyn being like, oh, he looks like Viggo Mortensen. And it feels weird even in the film. And to have it keep recurring here in this moment where the focus should be on anything else. Like, I don't know why Aragorn would come in and be like, yes, her love for me is great. And you too. I mean, you too.
Yeah, you're her brother. Yeah, she also like.
But it's
loves
but
you, so.
but no, it was the opposite of that. But he says that she loves you more truly than me. That he doesn't say she loves me. Oh, and also you. Aragorn says she loves her brother. She loves me, or a shadow, or a thought of me.
Okay, so
she also doesn't know anything about me. She loves the idea of me.
Yeah,
a hope of glory and great deeds. Like Aragorn represents something that Eowyn couldn't have, but wanted.
Yes. He says, and yet, Éomer, I say to you that she loves you more truly than me. For you, she loves and knows. But in me, she loves only a shadow and a thought, a hope of glory and great deeds and lands far from the fields of Rohan. And just that one part of like, she loves me only a shadow and a thought. And that just, I don't know, it seems very like Aragorn's like, I'm a brooding, dark, dangerous man. I'm Batman. I am Shadow.
He did walk into the scene wearing a hood, pretending to be invisible. Yeah. Like, his whole thing is that he's not his true self around anybody. Because there's that other part of Aragorn, which is the shame, right? Like, he can't return to being the king because he hasn't like accepted himself as that.
He hasn't accepted that he's earned it.
Right. So you know, she loves me as this superhero that she thinks I am, which he like totally is, but it's not who I really am. Is Aragorn failing himself because like by the story's conclusion he will rise to that ideal, and I think part of what makes him compelling as a protagonist, in as much as, you know, The Lord of the Rings has a central protagonist, what makes him compelling is this constant struggle with who he thinks he ought to be, what he's capable of being, and what ultimately the world needs him to be. And this whole like Eowyn loves this idea of me that I just am not thing. It does, again, feel weird in this moment, especially since she's near death and so is Pippin, and they haven't even... so is Merry, and they haven't even gotten to him yet. But it does, it speaks to that quality because he wouldn't be as good of a king if he believed so much in himself that he was like, yes, all women are in love with me.
It's like, it's a known fact. I am indeed hot. There's a Twitter thread that like went viral kind of towards the start of the year, and it's a guy who reimagined, basically. He's like, Lord of the Rings makes a lot more sense if you think about it like it's a bad college D&D campaign.
The best college D&D campaign, but yes, like a bad one. We've done this actually.
Yeah.
And the like weird love triangle thing in this like universe of, oh, it's a college D&D campaign, is explained by the DM he like introduces a love interest for the Aragorn character and then like forgets about it, and then he introduces Éowyn as a love interest, and then later on they realize, they're like, oh, Shire, I already gave you Arwen, so never mind about her, forget her, don't worry about it, ignore it.
My favorite pet theory is that especially The Hobbit is a D&D campaign.
Hobbit as a D&D campaign is the best.
Because there are how many dwarves? 12?
There are 13 dwarves.
There are 13 dwarves that have been clearly playing this game for a long time and have a handle on the world and the history. And there's Gandalf, which is Tolkien's self-insert NPC. And then they invite a new player one day and decide that this is the campaign about him. And that's Bilbo Baggins.
And that Gandalf is the NPC, or if he is a player, then he's the player that can't show up every week. So every once in a while, he's just gone.
That's
for like
how they
a while.
explain him in the Lord of the Rings one too. They're like, you have a buddy who's in a band, and his band keeps booking gigs, but he doesn't know when the gigs are going to be consistent. So he goes off for a couple months, and then he comes back because all his shows got canceled.
And that's something to love about Gandalf. But I think these inconsistencies and these peculiarities are, Tolkien as a novelist has weaknesses, and we're well aware of them at this point. I don't know, not to excuse them or anything like that, but yeah, you can kind of feel things being kind of picked up, dropped, focused on, not focused on enough. And he's kind of inconsistent. And that's also part of what is like lovable about this series, is the weird idiosyncrasies. So not to, reduce Éowyn to an idiosyncrasy, but it does feel like an odd choice. And anyway, she gets better.
Yeah.
She gets better, and Aragorn lets Éomer do it.
Yeah, call her name.
Yeah, he wafts the like magic herbs, whatever it is, in her face, and says,
"The 11 herbs and spices."
Yes, and so Éowyn, cried Éomer amid his tears. She opened her eyes and said, Éomer, what joy is this? For they said you were slain. Nay, but that was only the dark voices in my dream. How long have I been dreaming? And they're like, oh, yay, we're all alive. Our like surrogate father is dead, but we're alive, yay. And Gandalf, as they're leaving, says, great gladness it is to see you wake again to health and hope, so valiant a lady. And Éowyn says, to health, it may be so. At least while there is an empty saddle of some fallen rider that I can fill, and there are deeds to do. But to hope, I do not know. And this is when I wrote, we do not deserve Éowyn. Because she's hey, as long as there is a place for me to be in a battle and stuff to do, I will be there.
She wants to be back in the fight.
Everything is bleak, and we're probably all gonna die, but I'll be there.
Yeah, this is the heart of a hero, like fighting despite overwhelming odds, and that's who she is, like at her core. And it's a wonderful moment.
And then we we go to our dear friend Mary.
Oh, Mary.
And once again, kind of move through this process of like, he wafts the, fragrance near him and touches his head. And when the fragrance of Athalias, Athalas, that's it. And when the fragrance of Athalas stole the room, like the scent of orchards and of heather in the sunshine full of bees, suddenly Mary awoke, and he said, I am hungry. What is the time? Yay, hobbits!
Yay, hobbits! Concerning hobbits.
Burst out laughing.
Oh, he's
man, am I
so
hungry.
sweet.
Loved it.
How many meals did Mary miss?
He's like, oh my god, I missed 12 meals. Well, I have to eat all of them right now. to make
Breakfast,
up
second breakfast, 11sies, afternoon tea, lunch and dinner,
All of them
and
right
supper.
For every day that he was out.
Oh,
It's so good.
it's great. I love it. I laughed a lot. It's just great.
Yeah, as usual, the hobbits bringing in the levity, right? Like, the hobbits are capable of great things, and we hate to watch them suffer, and that's a whole other thing about what they can do. But the hobbits are fun. Like,
I love them.
that's what they're meant to be.
I love them.
And the
that's what I wrote
smoking
down.
discussion here.
We do not deserve Mary.
We don't.
We don't.
He's too good for this world.
He's too pure.
And so this is when I was like, okay, here's the deal. We don't deserve Faramir. We don't deserve Éowyn. They're going to go off. They're going to make their own kingdom. And the only people invited, who did I write down? Are Legolas, Gimli, and Treebeard. And then this moment with Mary happens, and I was like, all right, Mary can come too. They're invited.
The Entwives, if they ever get found, can come too.
Just get them all in one place and just like keep them safe, and they don't have to deal with like the Gandalfs and the Boromirs. I mean, he's dead. And who else is there? Sam, he annoys me. Get out of here.
My favorite thing is that he's like, I think I would like a meal and a pipe, like, as soon as possible.
Yeah,
But then he goes, no, not a pipe. I don't think I'll smoke again. He doesn't want to smoke anymore because he promised Theoden that when they got through it at the end, they would smoke together.
Talk
And then
about
Theoden
herbs.
died. That's the sweetest, saddest thing.
It's a brief. It's a nice moment, but it's also a brief moment because Aragorn's like, I think it's okay, and then Mary's immediately like, great, bring me a pipe.
Well, they redirect the direction of Mary's mourning, right? It's kind of a brilliant like move here, where it's like, oh, in remembrance to Theoden King, I'm never gonna smoke again because that's something that we wanted to do together. And Aragorn's like, so smoke and remember him. Like, don't let his memory die just because he died.
Yeah.
Smoke and think about him and why you wanted to smoke with him.
In the
that's
background
beautiful.
of this, I'm gonna put "Remember Me" from Coco, and we're all just gonna sit here and cry for a bit.
Remember me.
But it's great. And then he's like, yeah, I think I lost my weed on the battlefield though.
Oh my! This is
It's
okay.
so funny.
So he's like, I had some stuff in my backpack. I don't know where it is though. I think I lost it on the battle. Aragorn, could anyone go? He's like, I don't know where it, what happened. Can someone go get it? Master Meriadoc, said Aragorn, if you think that I have passed through the mountains in the realm of Gondor with fire and sword to bring herbs to a careless soldier who threw away his gear, you are mistaken. And I'm like, Aragorn, don't be mean.
He's sassing him. It's so funny.
It's so
and,
good.
and he says, and listen, if you can't find it, you can ask the herb master, and he'll tell you everything you've ever wanted to and not wanted to know about your pipe weed.
And when they leave, and then it's just Merry and Pippin, Pippin goes, was there ever anyone like him? Except Gandalf, of course. I think they must be related. And I love that because, like, Gandalf digs on Pippin and Aragorn digs on Merry.
Yes.
And It's good.
It's good. Because then Pippin calls Merry an ass. He's like, my dear ass, your pack's by your bed,
Yeah,
dummy.
he's like, idiot, it's been here the whole time.
And
He
Aragorn
said
saw
that
it.
while looking at it.
Aragorn, like, straight up just, played you.
So let's smoke. Let's do it.
Let's get lit. 420.
Blaze it.
Mary, I am not your weed man. I am the king.
Yeah, Merry, I'm not your guy. Pippin's your guy. And Pippin's like, yeah, you're right, I'm your guy. So good. That passage there, when Pippin and Merry sit there and they start smoking together, and he's like, hey, Merry, you're an ass. Go, let's smoke. And then he says, Merry says, it's best to love first what you are fitted to love, I suppose. You must start somewhere and have some roots, and the soil of the Shire is deep. And I just... all of this that passage there in this whole section, like Merry and Pippin sitting down to have a smoke together, like, hey man, we made it. We started in the Shire, like where our roots are, and we've got to frickin' Gondor, for crying out loud, and we're gonna sit here and smoke Longbottom Leaf in the Houses of Healing, but they know like their roots and like Merry's like, I've come to realize like what peace means and what it means to like tend a garden and what it means to fight for peace. And so let's just sit here and enjoy this moment together. And I just like love that.
There's a beautiful bit of wording there where I forget exactly what he says, but he says like, we're going to take it easy now, or like, let's be easy for a moment. Like reiterating that this is a moment of taking a breath and like giving these characters a chance to heal and rest. After these grave traumas they have endured.
Again, they all just need a hug.
or just to like chill out with a friend, right?
Chill out with a friend and smoke a bowl and just kick it.
So Aragorn and Gandalf go to, it says the warden of the Houses of Healing, and they say, Faramir and Eowyn need to stay here and heal. I don't like the language Aragorn uses for Eowyn. He says, the Lady Eowyn will wish soon to rise and depart, but she should not be permitted to do so. If you can in any way restrain her, at least 10 days be past.
Basically, like she's
Eowyn.
gonna fight you like crazy to get back out there.
I just
don't let her do it.
Specifically like the words not permitted and restrain. I mean, like, I get what he's saying. He's saying like she's gonna want to leave. She needs to stay and rest and heal. I just don't like those words. Anyway,
he uses those words for her, and then the words he uses for Faramir are really loaded too. When he's like, I don't like the idea that you should not tell somebody like, oh, for his protection, we should not tell him about Denethor. Like, I don't like
this
that.
Is Gandalf, yeah.
Because like personally, I always want to know things right away when they happen. People are like,
I don't know.
Don't tell me
Gandalf
until you know. But like, I think to say, oh, you have to restrain Eowyn and then don't talk to Faramir, I think that's restricting them both so much.
Well, Gandalf says, as for Faramir, he must soon learn that his father is dead, but the full tale of the madness of Denethor should not be told to him until he is quite healed and has duties to do. So he knows that he's not going to be able to hide the fact that Denethor is dead. And I don't think he's trying to hide that. I think he's just trying to protect Faramir right now while he is, very vulnerable and still weak. And then, so I love this. They're like, Faramir and Eowyn, they need to stay here and heal and rest as long as possible. Merry, he can go tomorrow.
Yeah,
he can leave.
He's probably going to be fine.
Yeah, it is likely he will be fit to arise tomorrow.
Mary's entire arm couldn't be felt 20 minutes ago.
But he's probably fine.
And now he's just like good to go.
Cool.
Hobbits bounce back is the thing. They're made of rubber.
I guess, yeah. Yeah. And then, so Aragorn's like, all right, I'm hungry. I'm going to go.
I have not
rest for a
slept
bit.
or
Also,
eaten in months.
I love that this is I think we should bring it back. It says, and when at last he had supped. I think we should use that word more as, like, oh, we have already eaten dinner. We've supped. I've already supped. I've already had
good.
supper.
It is a good word. For sure.
So he sups and then he gets right back to work.
Well, you can't stop Aragorn.
Everyone, as he's walking through the town, it says, "And word went through the city, the king has come again indeed. And they named him Elfstone because of the green stone that he wore. And so the name which it was foretold at his birth that he should bear was chosen for him by his own people."
Yes.
And then he goes outside the city and sleeps in his tent, and everyone in the city is like, "Wait, did the king actually come?" Because now
Imrahil's flag is flying, and but I swear we just saw a king. Like, that's weird.
There's this great interplay here between like destiny and divine birthright and the will of the people that Tolkien is evoking.
Yes.
Like not only is this the name that he was told he would have from the moment he was birthed, the prophecy has foretold, but also it's just something that sprang up naturally from the people around him. Like it's this thing that they call him because of his deeds and his actions and his reputation.
Well, no, this name in particular is like the most basic name they could have given. It's not a smart name. They're like, "Oh, what should we call him?" "Well, I think that stone is from an elf." "Hey, maybe we should call him Elfstone."
I mean, yeah, but also it's because that's all he has. That's like his only defining mark that he's wearing. He could be wearing his crown, his magic sword, under a banner, marched into the city
He's like, nah,
with his entire
I gotta be mysterious for a bit. I gotta be aloof.
So he's only wearing this elfstone because it's important to him, right? And that ring becoming a symbol of him among the people first, and granting him this name. It's a basic name. It's not like Thorin Oakenshield or whatever, but it's a folk name given by the folk, and I think that's beautiful because if you're not talking about what Aragorn's return, what the return of the king means, then like why did he return in the first place? Like why is it important? And so that he's earning respect and he's earning a reputation, but not in a flashy way. When I feel like so many leaders are all about that bluster and that grandeur, and we could use a lot less of that.
I don't have any idea of a leader that you're talking about currently.
Exactly.
Donald Trump.
You exactly get my meaning. Like that's a cool moment. I don't know how Tolkien feels about democracy versus monarchy, but I feel like what he's trying to establish is that the right person will rule the right way, and like destiny will seem like it's being fulfilled, but also the will of the people will be served at the same time.
Yeah, so that brings us to the end of the chapter. Do you guys have any like random thoughts or anything that we glossed over?
Gosh, I don't know. Wait, let me look at my notes and see. I think we addressed them all.
See, it's a good thing when my guests are like, "No," I'm like, "Great, that means I hit everything." Because
we were pretty thorough.
A lot of times I'm like, "Oh right, yeah, Sam did try and kill Gollum. You're right, I forgot about that."
That was like a whole thing.
Nope, yeah. I got all of mine. Cool. Got all of my notes done. I just I went and did a quick Google really fast because I was like, I don't want to start spewing lore that I didn't like know for sure that I had. But so they call him Elfstone, right? And they say, oh, it's the name that he was foretold to have, and then they come up with it. So Elfstone is the like Gondor language translation of the name Elessar, which is something that he's been called up to this point. He goes by a lot of names.
I haven't noticed.
Elessar was a name that they've given him. Estelle, obviously Strider, Aragorn, Telkontor. I mean, so they go in this chapter. Aragorn it gets it's his full name as king when he's and his name in the Elvish language, in the language of the Quenya, his name becomes Elessar Telkontar, which is basically just Elfstone Strider when you translate it out. It's just so Aragorn to kind of be like, okay, all of these things that I've been called, all of these names, I'm gonna, these identities that I've had, I'm gonna combine them into one thing, and make that my my king name, to remember my humble roots and stuff. And this is where it begins. It starts sprouting from this chapter. And I just really like that. Like Aragorn a lot.
That's really
He's
good.
all right. He has his flaws.
Sure.
But he has his moments too.
Yeah.
Every good character should have flaws.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I mean, like, I say all of this out of, like, spite on behalf of Éowyn, because, like, she deserved better and should have, like, done a lot more for her, but oh well, whatever. Too late for that. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so Alice and Buddy, what would you guys like to plug?
Well, our baby, our podcast baby, Those Happy Places, we've just released a whole series of episodes called Birds of Paradise, where we've done a 4 or 5 episode breakdown of the Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room and all of the history surrounding it, going all the way back to the history of the colonization of Hawaii and how that affects our world today. And it was a super fun little mini series to do, and that's on the feed for the Those Happy Places podcast. You can find that almost everywhere podcasts are found. Trust me, I'm working on Spotify. I'm working on it. They're hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, Birds of Paradise has been this incredible experiment where we decided we were gonna focus just on one ride for as long as we could, or one attraction, I guess. The Tiki Room isn't really a ride.
No.
But giving it the time to breathe and talk about its history and its place in time. And what was happening around 1963 when the ride opened. Again, the attraction, not the ride. And the history of the Dole Pineapple Company, and the history of the Hawaiian Islands and their relationship with the United States. It has been an ever-expanding just documentary of this one iconic attraction. I'm really proud of it.
It's been so fun to work on. Yeah, it is one of our crowning achievements, I think. And you can find that wherever podcasts are found, except for Spotify, and on Twitter at Happy Places Pod. That's
yes.
the one. At Happy Places Pod.
And Alice, there's one more thing we should probably plug, and it's Rogue Fun, a podcast story.
That's right.
Is back in full swing.
That's right. That's true. I have resurrected a old favorite podcast, Rogue Fun, a podcast story, where we have been watching Rogue One, a Star Wars story, in 10-minute segments, and doing hour-long episodes on every 10-minute segment of that film. It's been going for a couple of years now. We had a long break between episodes, but we're back in full swing. And we've been doing a breakdown of this movie once a month, every month for a while, and it's been so much fun. And that you can find that podcast everywhere podcasts are found, including Spotify.
All right.
And on Twitter at Rogue Fun Pod.
And then also, do you guys have a book, podcast, movie, etc. that you guys are enjoying and would like to recommend to the audience?
Yes, in the spirit of things, I want to recommend a book that I just started. I just started reading, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pronounce the last name of the author because I suck at this. So I just started reading. It's a young adult fantasy novel. It's called Children of Blood and Bone.
Yes.
The author is Nigerian American. Her name is Tomi Adeyemi, I think is how it's said.
Yeah.
It is a phenomenal read so far. I've only just started it. But it occurred to me, the events over the last few weeks, that I haven't read nearly enough fiction by Black authors. And I had this on my shelf, meaning to read it. And I was like, you know what? It's time. And it's really excellent. Highly
That's
recommend.
awesome. Yeah. I finished reading that a couple weeks ago. And it's what's real, listeners, if you haven't heard of this book, what's really cool about it is that it's a fantasy, like, magic book, but the magic and fantasy is based in, like, African mythology and lore, unlike pretty much every other, unlike this book, which is, that's just what I've been saying the past couple weeks since these, protests have started, is being like, I know that Lord of the Rings isn't exactly diverse. So here's some other, like, more diverse fantasy if that's what you want to, go and explore and support. Buddy, do you have anything?
Yeah, I've been listening to a new-ish, it's not brand new, but there's about 18 episodes right now, podcast. It's an actual play podcast set in the universe of Shadowrun. It's called Fun City, and it's hosted by a familiar voice, if you were on the internet in the early 2010s, Mike Rugnetta, of the PBS Idea channel.
I love him.
Yeah, he's great. And he's got an amazing cast of players who do this Shadowrun campaign in this kind of very unique, fleshed out, kind of homebrew setting of New York in the year 2101. If you've been thinking recently that the world seems increasingly dystopian, with authoritarian governments and very invasive corporations.
What? I don't know what you're referring to at all.
Not to mention an increase in police violence and prejudice. Fun City sets itself up to tackle those really heavy concepts in a really just... It's an entertaining way. It's silly sometimes in the way that actual play podcasts can be, because you've got a bunch of improvisers around a table having fun playing as magic characters. But it's also, like, remarkably poignant and heartfelt, and it takes itself exactly as seriously as it needs to. It's a great listen if you have just a little bit more bandwidth to think about these things than you... Yeah, then, like, if you have a little bit more after dealing with them on the regular, this is a good show to listen to. And I can't recommend it enough. They handle everything about an actual play RPG podcast just wonderfully in that show.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah. And then I want to recommend, I've been listening to the audiobook of, it's called Slay, and it's by Brittany Morris. And it's a YA book about a girl who is, like, the secret creator of this huge online RPG for Black people specifically. And then, like, conflict arises, as happens in most books. And like, something happens on the outside world that, like, threatens the safety of this safe haven for these, Black gamers. And it's also cool because it alternates between different points of view. So there's an LGBT character. So got something for Pride Month too, throwing that in there. But yeah, it's really, like, it's a really cool, and I also, like, really appreciate that it, like, the main character is this, like, teenage girl who created a whole video game, and, like, that's not, that's also not something that you see represented a lot of, like, girls doing, like, coding and technology stuff. So anyway, that's really cool.
I've heard good things about that one. I was thinking about reading it myself.
Yeah, it's really good so far. I'm, like, halfway through the audiobook, and it usually takes me a long time to get halfway through an audiobook. I have to renew them, like, 20 times, and I'm like, I'm gonna listen to it, I promise. But, like, I've actually been, like, really listening to this one because it's good. That's What I'm Talking About is a proud member of WB&E. You can learn more about the network by going to WB&E.org, where you can find other shows on the network, such as our musical theater podcast, Sincerely Us. Actually, this might be coming out, like, basically on their 1-year anniversary. So congratulations, Becca and Eni. That's amazing. Just proud of y'all. Y'all are great. Also, can't wait to revisit more Star Kid stuff.
Dear listener, today's going to be a good day, and here's why.
Because today we're headed to Broadway.
Are we? Okay, maybe not, but we're talking about Broadway. I'm Becca.
And I'm Eni, and we host Sincerely Us, a podcast for the casual musical theater fan. We discuss everything from strong female characters
To Ben Platt.
to individual shows
To Ben Platt.
to Act 1 finales and everything in between.
We even have a few experts on to talk about their expertise in the realm of musical theater.
It's an easygoing show for every theater fan. No experience required.
Listen every Wednesday at WBNE.org or wherever you get podcasts.
It's not a Disney fan cast, I promise.
The cover art is by Graphite, aka Vaishon Brandon. You can support him on Instagram at graphite.vmb. You can find the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Tolkien About Pod. Good Lord, had to think about that. You can find me on Twitter at MCWatsup and Instagram at MCTurndownForWatt. You can support the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/TolkienAboutPod. And this week's sponsor is Mayor. Mayor, thank you so much for becoming a patron and supporting the podcast. It means a lot, especially this month, because this month I'm donating the Patreon funds, proceeds, whatever you want to call it, to the Harry Potter Alliance, which is a great organization who do a lot of just amazing, great work in a whole bunch of important areas. Just everything that you want Harry Potter fandoms to be, but without the author involved in any way. So I'll be donating the Patreon funds from the month of June to the Harry Potter Alliance. And if you are able to, I also encourage you to make a donation. So the discussion question from a couple weeks ago was, what was a plot twist that you enjoyed? These ones are from Facebook. Meredith said Hans and Frozen, and that one got me. I remember being shook.
I watched
when
it
that happened.
last night. I watched it-
Really? Oh
I
my God,
watched it
that's
last
crazy.
night, and I remember the first time watching it being really shook by that. But yeah, I had the urge to watch it last night.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters like during the first couple weeks when the movie was out, so there wasn't, a lot of talk about what happened in it yet. And then I was like, what? And my two friends were like, literally, how did you not see that coming?
Yeah, rewatching it, being like, oh, I see.
I know,
you know how
right?
he keeps his gloves on the entire time?
Yeah.
It's very, he's hiding something.
Samuel on Facebook said the end of season 1 of The Good Place.
Oh,
That's a good one.
That's a good twist,
good.
and that you have to
Great.
sit with it between seasons, right? And that commitment, and the way that the show just is completely transformed by it is amazing.
good.
It's a very risky.
I think I might
twist.
just have to do a Good Place podcast after I finish this one, because like I've said like 20 billion times that I think The Good Place is the most well-constructed, created TV show. It's so well done, and I love it.
I would be
Anyway.
honored
good.
to guest on that show. It's one of my
Yes.
favorites, a modern classic. Immediately, as soon as it was over, I'm like, this is etched into television history.
Sobbed, like absolutely sobbed. And then what happened is that Hulu started like auto playing. They had like a little after show talk show with all of the cast, and I was like, why would you play this? I'm not in an emotional state for this at all.
No, I haven't even watched it yet because I can't handle that.
Oh my gosh, just be prepared. I'm glad I didn't say anything then, but like it's so good. It's so good. And then Nathaniel said the end of The Prestige, which also
The
got me.
Prestige.
Ooh, yes.
That's
that's
a
a good one.
twist that is built into the like central theme of the film so wonderfully, right? Like the prestige
it's
of
really
the
well
prestige is a prestige.
And then there was, I can't remember, I didn't write this down, but someone else basically listed like all the good horror movies and was like The Sixth Sense, The Village. Someone said, wait, Knives Out isn't a horror movie, I don't think. But anyway, yeah, like a lot of like good horror thriller, I guess, psychological thriller movies have those really good twists. So anyway, this week's discussion question is, what smell would awaken you from near death?
Oh, that's wonderful.
As I say that, I'm trying to think of what mine would be. So anyway, so I will ask that question on social media in the coming week that you are listening to it. So make sure you are following everywhere on social media, because I sometimes don't ask it on all the social medias because I forget. Literally last night I was posting on the Facebook group the discussion question for last week's episode. I can't remember. And I wrote it and I was like, I can't remember if I've asked this already here or not, but you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I posted it and then I literally scrolled down like not even a full scroll. And I had already posted it like 2 days ago. So I'm doing great. So, all right. All that being said, do you guys have any parting words for the audience?
Oh man, what's something pithy from Lord of the Rings that we could say at the end of the episode?
I don't got it.
It's not so bad to be overlooked. Isn't that something that Mary says at the beginning of the chapter?
That is Mary says. Mary says that right before he passes out. Right before he asks if he's going to get buried.
Oh, maybe not.
Poor baby.
Let's all go smoke some long bottom leaf.
And that's what I'm talking about. That better have been recording. Oh, thank God.